off the first stop on his world tour, our new president and prophet, Russell M. Nelson. You say you want some revelation, well, here you go. It's gonna blow your freaking mind.
Brothers and sisters, welcome back to the weekly Mormon News Roundup, where Al and Rebecca are going to ruminate on the great and spacious beehive. This week is January 1st, 2023, episode 40. That we're starting off a great new year with a great new episode. And thank you very much for joining us this week, Rebecca. Sorry that D-Base couldn't be with us this week.
Yeah, it seems a little sparse without him here, but I think that we can handle it. I'm pretty sure we can do it.
That's all right. You came on back in, I think it was October, is that right?
I think it was in October. Yeah, I had such a good time. And I think you were not
I was
here
gone.
at that time
Yeah,
either.
I was.
That's very suspicious. Are you guys ever in the same place at the same time?
We have been noticed in the same place at the same time infrequently.
Okay.
Yeah, but we miss D-Base, and we'll be glad to see him back here next week. So tell me, Rebecca, how is the Good Book Club coming along?
Well, the Good Book Club is awesome as usual. For January, we are reading a book called Astrophysics for People in a Hurry by Neil deGrasse Tyson. So we are delving into the mysteries of the universe, and it's been very educational.
That's some heavy stuff, I'll say. Yeah,
it is some heavy stuff. And we even had for those of our book club members, we're a virtual national book club, but we do have, quite a number of us here in Utah where I'm located. We went to a planetarium event at Utah Valley University where a astronomy professor gave us an amazing presentation. So we're just delving headlong into this topic, and there's a lot to learn, and it kind of blows your mind. It's pretty amazing.
Wow, sounds like things are going really good.
Yep.
And so tell us a little bit more about the Mormonish podcast. What's coming down the line for 2023 there?
Oh yeah, okay. I'll take off my Good Book Club hat and I'll put on my Mormonish hat.
You have a lot of hats you wear.
You know what? When you like what you do, you just keep doing it. So,
yep.
And that's it. So yeah, Mormonish is excellent. It's our little podcast, Mormonish, living a joyful life on the other side of Mormonism, and we talk to all kinds of amazing guests, people that are just doing wonderful and incredible things. We have some really interesting people coming up in the next month. And an event that we're really excited about. We have a guest. His name is Jeff Pingree. He is an Emmy award-winning documentary filmmaker, and he has made a film that came out a couple years ago called The Return of Elder Pingree, Memoir of a Departed Mormon. And this is a film. It received so many awards. It came out before COVID, so a lot of people internationally and nationally know about it, but the Mormon community and the post-Mormon community don't really know about it. And it's the story of him returning to his mission and just sort of deconstructing what happened. It's just a beautiful award-winning film. We are doing a screening here in Salt Lake, and he's going to come, and it's kind of put on by the Good Book Club and by Mormonish, and he's going to come and do a Q&A. But a little plug for this film, it can be rented on Amazon for just a few dollars, and it's a beautiful, beautiful film for anybody who's a post-Mormon, an active Mormon, anybody that's served a mission. I think will really love this. So that's something we're really excited about, and we're doing that in tandem with Mormon Book Reviews with Steve Pinecker, and also Mormon Stories podcast. So a lot of people involved in this. It's going to be really good. So that's my little plug.
Sounds like it. I sure appreciate that, and I'll definitely give that one a try.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. It's on Amazon Prime. You have to look it up. It's called The Return of Elder Pingree.
The Return of Elder Pingree. I'll give that one a look. All right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Rebecca. And I understand you have the joke of the week for us this week?
I have the joke of the week, and I had to fight for it because other people who shall remain nameless wanted to give the joke, but I think we'll give him a chance later. So.
If D-Base wants to give a joke, he needs to show up, right?
But I think that's fair. That's right. You snooze, you lose. That's exactly it. So
yeah, and he'll be back next week, so we look forward to his joke next week.
That's right. He's probably working on the joke right now. It's going to be a really good one. Yeah. So, well, I picked a joke. I am a cat person, and my cat is a post-Mormon, which is interesting. So I have a cat joke. So did you hear about the Mormon cat with a speech impediment?
I didn't.
Well, he had 9 wives.
Oh, he had 9 wives?
He had 9 wives.
Oh, that's excellent. My cats are Catholic. No, it wasn't a bad one at all. I think that was pretty dang good.
After that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear about your post-Mormon cat. My cats are cat lick themselves, so
Oh,
yeah.
see, there you go.
Yeah,
Diversity. That's
yeah,
great.
exactly. All right. So starting off this week, we got some follow-ups from previous articles. Um, let's see. The first one, we have the defendant in the first Boy Scouts of America case has been sentenced. Chapman was involved in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the Boy Scouts of America when the crimes were committed, and he has been given his sentence. So I'm trying to pull up the article. It's on WILX.com. And let's see, how long did
Right.
he
And how
get?
many years was he sentenced? I was thinking it was, gosh,
It
I want to
was,
say, was it
let's see,
22?
12 to 20.
12 to 20. That's what it
Two
was.
sentences of 12 to 20 years and 10 to 15 years concurrently in Michigan. Yeah, this is, let's see, his name is Chapman, but it's, there it is, 51-year-old Mark Chapman of New
Mark
York.
Chapman.
So he's going away, and
He is.
good. We're going to start seeing some justice being served on behalf of these victims and the Boy Scouts. So.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like the Mormon News Roundup almost might need a dedicated slot for Boy Scouts, because I feel like
Yeah.
this article is going to repeat itself over and over and over, and that's a good thing. So
I think so. We'll definitely have a running report on the updates of the Boy Scouts and what's going on there, because this is not going away anytime soon. Also, there's an update this week on the AP sex abuse case down in Arizona. This one is a little strange because the appeals court that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints appealed to has decided to side with the church and against the judge, who the judge ruled that the priest penitent privilege doesn't apply in this case. But the appeals court has decided to say, well, actually, the ward clerk was not clergy. But we got a little bit of that kind of gets a little sticky, a little bit of a sticky wicket here, because the way that the LDS Church runs, it's all run by lay clergy. So, everybody in the LDS Church is clergy, really. Whether at some point or another, they have either they're a bishop, there's a president so-and-so, or counselor so-and-so.
Yeah, everyone has the name president. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Everyone is a president. There's more presidents than there are presidents, are not presidents. And I felt when I read that article, I felt that one of the reasons that the court gave for changing it was, he was in, a bishopric, and exactly what you said. I don't think they have an understanding that everyone is in a bishopric.
Yeah,
Everyone
exactly.
is clergy. So to me, that was disappointing, because I thought he should have had to testify. I mean, I thought that would have been an avenue that there could have been some progress made in the case, which I think all of us are hoping for. And it just seems like step by step, one step forward, two steps back, with Curtin McConkie, of course, just absolutely hammering away. So I thought this was unfortunate to hear, but I do understand how they just probably don't understand the inner workings of the LDS Church.
The LDS Church is just, it also prides itself on being the way it is and not having a paid clergy or a professional clergy. They pride themselves very much on having a lay clergy, and that keeps a constant rotation of people coming in and going out.
It does. And also, when anything happens that's maybe more sordid, they are very happy to be able to say that is simply a volunteer.
Yeah.
Again, people don't understand. It's not really a volunteer. You really are called to do it. And if you're a faithful LDS member, you do it. But they love to say lay or volunteer.
Yeah, volunteer just because they're not paid, right?
Simply a volunteer. I mean, a bishop being called a volunteer, a stake president I've seen being called a volunteer in different news articles. And all of us know that's a large stretch of the word volunteer.
Yeah. Some other articles that have come out this last week point out that the sex abuse video will victimize the child or the victim long after the abuser is gone, long after the abuser, in this case, when Adams committed suicide. But after the sentence has been served, the video is still out there. You can't scrub things from the internet. It's just, it's still out there circulating, and these poor girls are going to have their images of their abuse out there for predators and any curious individual to seek them out and find them.
Yeah, and it has a life of its own now, I feel. And I think
Yeah.
it has a lot of notoriety. And you know that people are looking at it more now than ever, just because it's in the news all the time. And it's so unfortunate because if you think back to when, the confession was first made, had something been done, many of the videos wouldn't even have been made. They wouldn't be out there at all. So it's very sad.
Yeah, and this article was also picked up by the national press, and it just goes to show that it continues to grow. That when child abuse is allowed to continue, the longer that it's out there, it means that Paul Adams' videos are allowed to rack up more and more views. And this is where the issue comes in: is that you had an opportunity where the lay clergy could have put a stop to this. Yeah. And
that's right. And I always think how, the lay clergy heard about everything, did nothing. And then you have somebody in New Zealand, I believe it was, who sees the video and, makes it their mission, realizes that it's something that's probably currently or very recent, and a worldwide hunt to try to stop this, where these children were going to church every Sunday, sitting there with their village, quote, quote, and yet nothing was happening there. And yet people all over on the other side of the world recognized it for what it was because of the video and absolutely made it their mission to try to find these people and help these children. So
they came to the rescue.
Very wrong. Yep. Very wrong.
So we applaud the people from New Zealand and shame on the bishops and the clergy members, anybody that was privy to this knowledge in the girls' village that didn't do anything to help.
Well, and as they say, it takes a village to raise a child and also a village to let abuse happen. And I think that's absolutely true.
Sure does. Absolutely. All right. We ready to get into the news of the week here?
Oh, boy. Let's do it.
Okay. We're starting off with some of the big hitters this week. The big money articles this week. First of all, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has purchased the 823,000 square foot Pacific Gateway Industrial Development in Kent, Washington, for $260 million. This was big news. It's been all over the internet that the church, multi-billion-dollar corporation, has laid out a ton of money for a facility that they're going to lease back to Jeff Bezos. Blue Origins is going to, one of his companies is going to be renting it from the church. And
so it was not purchased for a charitable purpose then. This sounds to me to be purely a savvy business deal.
Oh, absolutely. This is a real estate holding. There's nothing charitable whatsoever about this. Where did the funds come from?
That's so surprising.
Yeah, I don't know. Did the church come from, or did the church purchase this from funds from Ensign Peak? We don't know.
And there's no way to find out because I'm sure that money trail is twisted and turns, and we will never find out. And then that article comes out, and everyone's pretty overwhelmed by that. And then a few days later, another article
of the church buying even more property. Church is going to build a $600 million industrial campus in Phoenix, Arizona. And you're right, just a few days later, that one broke. So we've got the church's real estate arm. Yeah.
I'm doing the math. That's close to $1 billion.
Close to $1 billion.
Do we know what we're doing? Do we know what's going to happen with that industrial campus?
We don't know exactly, but it's zoned industrial, zoned commercial, so you're going to get some sort of business, some sort of industry going on there. There has been some pushback. The local people in the Phoenix area, I believe this one's over in Glendale, the Glendale area of Phoenix, they are not too happy about this happening in their backyard because, well, there's noise pollution, there's light pollution because you're going to have, lights on at all times of the day and night. That's going to drive their real estate prices down. So people aren't too happy about this going in, but hey, it's all in the name of progress, right?
It's all in the name of something. I'm not sure. And I did have the thought when I read where the town that the complex was in, I thought that's a heavy, there's a lot of LDS people there. And I thought, I wonder if this is a little bit of a shelf breaking item maybe for some of them that live next door to this complex. And why is the church buying this? And what is this all about? And nobody really knows. In fact, this is kind of funny. I was talking to Radio Free Mormon about these purchases. And I asked him what he thought was going to happen there, because I always figured he has his finger on the pulse of everything that's happening. His first thought was cloning. I thought, I'm not sure if that's exactly true. But then he said, no, I think that the church is trying to take over Amazon, and these would be the facilities for it. And they're going to rename Amazon Nauvoo. So if you hear about Nauvoo Prime, Radio Free Mormon was correct. Maybe that's what's happening.
All
We
right.
don't know. It's a big mystery.
We'll test his spirit of prophecy and see how well it comes out, right?
Very prophetic. That's right.
Okay. Well, this one also brings us to our Mormon News Roundup poll of the week. So, Rebecca, down at the bottom of our document here, we've got this fun poll that D-Vay's put together for us before he took off on vacation or wherever he went this week.
How dare he?
Yeah. So please go over to Anchor and take our poll. Tell us what you think. The question is, how do you feel about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints purchasing a 1 million square foot industrial development for $260 million? Is it number one?
And do you want me to read these, or do we want to trade off?
Yeah. Do you, if you could read them.
Yep, I'll read them. Okay, so number one, no problem. This is exactly what James in the Bible wrote about when he extolled pure religion undefiled. That's number one. Number
pure
two,
religion undefiled.
Undefiled. Number two, inspired. It's nice to see those giving machine donations are really being put to good use. Okay, that one made me laugh. That's good. Number three, a testimony builder. The church is bringing souls to Christ, one mega distribution center at a time.
That's right.
Or a mall, right?
Yeah.
Okay, number four, troubled. Jeff Bezos has more money than God, yet even the Amazon CEO pays rent to the LDS Church. That's a head scratch. All right, number five, outraged. Jesus said, "Ye cannot serve God and mammon." Besides, we're still trying to pay off the City Creek mortgage. Now
That's
that
right.
is... Boy, I don't know how people are going to choose between these. These are all so accurate and valid. Okay, now we've moved on to number six. Not sure. Joseph Smith never found buried treasure with a rock in the hat, but he never looked for it in Kent, Washington.
That's true.
That is interesting. I don't know. And then number seven, which I believe is our final one. Let me turn the page and make sure. Number seven. Is that our last one?
Yep, seven's the last one.
Number seven, sad. I am guessing that this purchase is where most of James Huntsman's tithing went.
Yep, it's already been spent,
I
James.
would
Sorry.
believe it. It's already over. You're not going to get it back. So, wow, those are some very thought-provoking choices there.
Yeah. Any of them stick out to you that you want to vote for?
The one that made me laugh, of course, is the giving machines. But I actually think I align more with number four. I am kind of troubled, that someone who's the CEO of Amazon now has to pay rent to the church. It kind of reminds me of when I heard that the church had outbid Bill Gates on some farmland. I thought, good heavens, is this really the arena that this church is playing in?
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, I don't think most members understand how much money is in play here. I don't think our little brains can comprehend it. So,
well, when you have Elder Bednar going to Washington and saying, we don't have much money, that's very much a relative term, right?
It's very relative. He was like millions, billions, millions.
I'll tell you, I'm not competing with Warren Buffett or Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates for anything.
No, but exactly that's what I mean. Yeah. We can't comprehend it. But this is the arena that Ensign Peak is playing in, and I still think it's the tip of the iceberg. I think there's more to Ensign Peak Holdings than we even understand, and the real estate holdings. And I just, maybe there'll be a future article where it'll blow our minds even farther. But it's incredible.
Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by our friends over at Signature Books, www.signaturebooks.com. We invite you to check out their latest book written by Romney Burke, which is entitled Susie Young Gates, Daughter of Mormonism.
Brigham Young had over 50 wives and 56 children, but none has better name recognition than daughter Susie Young Gates. She lived from 1856 and died in 1933. Yet she, like so many women of Mormonism's past, has remained a mystery to most church members. In Susie Young Gates, Romney Burke, the author, paints a portrait of a strong woman who rose to prominence within the church, fought for the rights of women throughout the country, yet dealt with personal trials and her share of heartbreak. Okay, back to the news. We're going over for a little sports segment here with regards to BYU football and Navy footballs back in the spotlight this week. So the first article is BYU has recruited a new quarterback for their football team. And he is not a member of the church. His name is Kadon Slovis, and he has been a quarterback for, let's see, what was his... why can I not remember? I'm having the. This is from the
Philadelphia, isn't he? Is that
yeah.
what I think I remember reading?
Let's see, USC and Pitt. Yeah, exactly. So he's played at USC and also Pitt University. So yeah, he's got some experience. I guess his career is kind of slumped a little bit, and so that's why he's going to BYU to try and revive his career, and also at the same
members
time,
would not say that. They would say that the Lord works in mysterious ways, and that the inspiration is hit, and he was led to BYU. It was meant to be. I'm pretty sure that's how they would spin it. Absolutely,
exactly. And these are the same people that. This Mr. Slovis one, he joked that like, wait a second, there are all these people Mormon here, and like he came to play at BYU, and he said, well, these guys were giving us all these like gifts for like afterwards, after game in the shower room.
They were
and
so friendly,
yeah, they were so nice. Everybody's like, oh, thank you so much for coming to play us, and he had all these hecklers in the stands, and they were saying, oh yeah, you stink, man, and he's like, well. Wait a second. Normally, I would, when you walk past the hecklers, you think, okay, they're drunk, right? But he realized these guys are all stone cold sober.
Yeah,
none of these people
he
are
said
drunk.
that kind of terrified him because he's like,
it's terrifying.
The people that are drinking, it's all good fun, but these are calculated insults. These are people that are in their right mind, and they are hostile.
It stings. It's brutal, right?
It was very disconcerting, he said. And now these are his fans. These are the people that will be backing him up. So, he might pause there. If he doesn't perform as they hope he will, how will they treat him? I don't know. It might be a little hostile environment.
Yeah, we do wish him the best of luck down there. And hopefully he'll help BYU come back on top and lead them to a lot of wins. So good for him. Also, with regards to football, the LDS Navy coach, this was, let's see, Ken Neomatalolo. He was fired in the locker room. So we just reported not too long ago, it was either last week or the week before, that Ken was announcing his retirement from Navy, and now he's being forced out. He's actually being fired from Navy. So what the future holds for him?
Yeah, it was very abrupt, and I don't think he expected it at all. So I'd like to make a prediction on behalf of Mormon News Roundup that he, along with the new quarterback, ends up at BYU sometime in the future. That's what I'm wondering.
That's fair. Yeah. As an assistant coach, who knows?
As an assistant coach, I had also sort of heard through certain channels that he had been made a stake president relatively not too long ago. And people were wondering, I mean, that's a big calling. And I don't think that he had been a bishop or anything before in leadership like that. And so take that on, it might be, it's definitely a case of split focus, I think. If you're trying to be a stake president and also, head coach. So I don't know. There was some speculation there that there might have just been a shift in focus that might have led to some of the events. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't in the locker room where he was fired, but that's where it happened. And that seems kind of
abrupt.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to go
Especially
into
since I
the
believe
locker
it was a
room
winning
after
game. It was a game they won. And then you would think that the, administration would come in and pat you on the back. Oh, and by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, here's your pink slip.
Could be meant to be. That he's meant to be, all roads lead to BYU. And maybe the Lord is putting everything in place for a new quarterback and some help in the coaching staff. And because we all know it's the Lord's football team. And there's a lot of things in play. So
we do wish him the best of luck, and maybe we'll be seeing him also with the BYU Cougars in the future. So moving on, we've also got some pretty severe weather this year. So by contrast, the LDS Church that's been willing to shell out hundreds of millions of dollars for real estate holdings, they've had a lot of people, 5 homeless people actually so far have died by freezing to death. Utah across the state had sub-zero temperatures before Christmas, and it killed some homeless people. The exposure was too great, and we recently had a homeless guy try to seek refuge and avoid freezing to death by breaking into the Provo Temple. The church is pressing charges against him and fining him for that. So,
the optics are just really not good on this. And I think the headline here in Utah, when it talked about the very unfortunate situation of the 5 homeless people, they said froze to death literally in the shadow, of the temple that is being refurbished to a tune of millions and millions of dollars. So just optically, and then when you compare, there are other churches, the Methodists specifically come to mind, that are opening doors to buildings, and saying, come inside. And
as heating centers. Because you've got churches, church houses that are sitting vacant 6 days a week.
Yep.
And yet you've got homeless people that, not every homeless person is a drug addict. Not every homeless person, is somebody who found themselves a victim of their own circumstance. You got a lot of people out there who fell on hard times. They lost a job just like could happen to anybody, just like happened to Ken Niumotalolo. So I don't think he's going to end up homeless, but if he did, I certainly hope that he would be able to find a warming center at one of those Methodist churches. I would hope that the LDS Church would start opening up its doors and saying, hey, give us your homeless so that we can give them a place where they can sleep and, have a hot meal and, just to stay out of the brutal temperatures for the night.
Yeah, and I think I've heard that before, wasn't it? I think, Jesus, who said, why don't we care for those
That's right.
that need our help? And I think that this, optically, this is just, it's right in your face. And even some prominent faithful Mormons like Kwaku,
Kwaku has weighed in on this,
have they weighed in? And he himself brought up that idea. I think it was a meme or a comment where he just said, is there any way that we could utilize this resource? We have these empty church buildings everywhere, which are heated. You don't even need to break in. Open the doors.
Yeah, exactly.
and try to help. So it's not going unnoticed. And so, but luckily, so many other people, other churches, other denominations, other people, business owners in the community, people are seeing the need. And they're picking up the slack where perhaps the LDS Church is just not poised, not able to do it. For whatever reason, they're not able to do it.
Yeah, it is a little shocking that Utah's second largest county, Utah County, Provo is the county seat there. There's not a single homeless shelter in Utah County, and yet there's plenty of homeless there too.
Yeah, there are. I actually live in Utah County, and it's true. I have seen this manifest, in our area, and you're right. There's really nothing organized and set up to help anyone, which is just incredible to me.
Yeah, so hopefully things will take a turn for the better. You can definitely find anything about these articles in the show notes. I know that we're kind of going kind of fast and hot through these, but we kind of have to. There's just a lot of news this week.
It was a big week at the end of the year. Was. Absolutely. Yeah, we have pages and pages of articles to get through here.
So let's we'll jump down to the south end of the state, where Warren Jeffs has released some new revelations tied to child kidnapping case of the LDS leader's nephew. So from prison, Warren Jeffs has been leading the FLDS Church. KSL reports on this one. And he's given them some directives. Let's see. Heber Pearson Jeffs, 54, of Kingston, Piute County, was charged Monday in 6th District Court with child kidnapping, a first-degree felony, and a warrant has been issued for his arrest. So, he's going to be going to jail, it looks like, because kidnapping, we're not happy with people that engage in child trafficking and kidnapping. And, he's... let's see. This is because Warren Jeffs is accused of taking his sister's young daughter and not allowing her to be returned to her biological parents. And that happens quite a bit in the FLDS community.
Yeah, there does seem to be sort of like a rotating door with
Hmm.
your children and entire families
Yeah,
moving, worthy priesthood holders kind of back and forth. And as I understood it, these revelations that are coming from prison from Warren Jeffs, they're very concerning to a lot of people.
yeah,
Something about telling women to leave their employment,
mhm,
no working anymore, kind of shelter in place. It seems like they're
yeah,
just gearing up for something. And I'm not sure what that would be, but it's definitely impacting the community. And they
mhm.
think that this kidnapping situation may have something to do with, kind of whatever is on the horizon. We don't know. So I'm sure that you'll be covering more stories about this in the future.
Oh, for sure. Also tied to the FLDS, we have another article that's from the AP News. A polygamous leader pleads not guilty amid an FBI investigation. We've talked about this FLDS leader, Sam Bateman, in the past, and he's been in prison down in Phoenix for kidnapping and tampering with evidence. So we have, let's see, Sam Bateman, who's been um, let's see, accused of abusing children in the
Mhm.
FLDS community, and he's kind of been running a little bit of the show from the outside of prison, while
Uh-huh.
Warren Jeffs is still trying to run things from inside prison. So it's just kind of a mess with the
It
FLDS
is a
right now.
mess. It's very unfortunate. It really is. And I know there are people outside of the community that are trying to help and get involved and offer support and, bless them for doing that. Absolutely. Because
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of suffering going on there,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
there are for sure. So yeah, the FLDS back in the news. So, on a little bit better note, we've got the giving machines that the church has rolled out. The church actually doubled the number of cities with the giving machines this year to 20, and 8 other cities have received visits from mobile giving machines. So they've got portable ones that they take around to visit certain cities, and they were only in 10 cities last year. So they doubled the amount of machines that they had. The machines raised 5.8 million last year. Altogether, $15 million has been raised by the machines. So it's doing really well. But the this is kind of it kind of rings a little funny in the ears when you hear about the church um, re- putting out these giving machines to raise donations for charity that the church is then going to turn around and distribute to charity.
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
and you'll go to a store or a fast food restaurant and they'll say, "Would you like to round up, and
Hmm.
we'll give to this charity." And that's great because that's a for-profit business
Yeah.
that is, that is raising
Hmm.
something for charity. Well, the church is a charity, isn't it? I mean,
Hmm.
it's tax exempt like a charity.
Yeah.
And they're not matching these contributions. They're
No.
literally just sort of a middleman. They're
Yeah.
collecting charitable donations and the funniest thing that I learned just today actually, is that they are one of the charities that you can give to,
Yeah.
which seems like a chicken and an egg scenario or an infinity loop
Hmm.
or something. That kind of
Yeah.
blew my mind a little bit. So I don't know. That's very
Absolutely.
unusual. If you really dig into what the giving machine is, it's not what
Hmm.
it appears on the surface.
No, it certainly isn't. So, the giving machines, I've always thought it was a little strange that what they do and what their purpose is, but there's lots of good charities out there, and any charity is willing to accept a donation. So, whether you give it through the LDS Church or directly to the charity, the way I feel best about it is when I can give the most amount that gets to the expressed cause. So,
Yep. That's
yeah.
exactly right, and that would be
Hmm.
an organization that's perhaps a little more or a lot more transparent than the
Yeah.
LDS Church, where they
Hmm.
absolutely, let you know where the money's going, and it's
Yeah.
all documented, and then you can make a decision that
Hmm.
you feel good about because of
Yeah,
transparency.
for sure. Okay. Big news from the church this week has been that the LDS Church has announced that Sunday's second hour meetings are going to open with a prayer. And these prayers are supposed to have specific wording in them, Rebecca. So we're not allowed to just get up and speak the King's English. We got to go back to Elizabethan English. again.
Exactly. For some reason, the verbiage of religion seems to have focused on, Shakespeare's English, which is
Yeah.
very unusual to me because I keep thinking, all right, if we're a restorationist church, shouldn't we base it on words from the 1800s? Shouldn't we say maybe y'all or a
Yeah,
prayin' or,
that's
there's all
right.
kinds of things that we could talk like that. I think that would be more in line with how our church began, in the 1800s. So, and the other thing I think is interesting is that, and scholars can weigh in on this, but the use of thee, thou, thine, that is not necessarily the formal address. That really is actually more informal. Anybody that knows anything about Romance language,
Yeah.
it's not what you think it is.
And really, if you want to be formal or use the language of the upper classes, you would have been speaking French, right?
And that's
Considering
true. Well,
Elizabeth.
we do have the word adieu in the Book of
Yeah.
Mormon. So,
Yeah.
maybe there's a precedence for that. So I found it
Yeah.
interesting in the article where it made sure that you have to be a baptized member of the church, which made me think about primary. I've been in primary for decades. And so does that mean that our little primary children who are not yet baptized can't pray? I'm not sure. Maybe there's some kind of precedence in the handbook that waives that, but it was very interesting, I thought.
Well, a lot of this, when you get down to like the specifics of wording and specific policy dictates like this really seems to be the line that Russell M. Nelson's drawing, is that he really wants people to speak properly and use the right terms and
Right, very formal.
Exactly, very formal.
Well, he literally changed the name of the church.
Yeah, exactly.
We can no longer use the beloved and world known word Mormon. That is now pretty much the worst thing that you could ever do. So, yeah, I think formality is definitely something that's on his agenda. I also feel that this gives people whiplash, like a lot of other decisions that have kind of come out lately, because, the rule prior to this was that the meeting, the block of meetings was opened by the sacrament meeting prayer, and the closing prayer. And then, the meeting was already open, but now that's not right. Now we do open. It's kind of like, priesthood session, not priesthood session, women's session. It's, there's so many different things that are kind of back and forth. I'm not exactly sure. I know there are others I'm forgetting, but there's some flip-flopping going on.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Rebecca. Yeah, it really gave me some whiplash here because I haven't attended a church meeting in quite a few years. Since we had the 3-hour meeting block, and back then you had an opening and a closing. It was very important to have an opening and a closing for each meeting.
Right.
So the fact that they just allowed the closing or the benediction of sacrament meeting to act as the opening prayer for the second session, that is something that I wasn't privy to. So I thought, well, when this first thing broke, I thought, have we not been doing that all along?
No, they came out and said, we will not be opening the second block. So that's what I mean, flip-flop. And I wonder if it was a time issue because myself having been in primary, when they went to the 2-hour block, I am telling you that was on steroids as far as how fast we had to move those kids in and out. We had to, snapping the fingers, get going. Come on, say the say the talk, give them this. Yeah, I wonder if it was a time constraint. We don't have time for the prayer. We got to move on through it. So I don't know. But now we know it's all been put back into order, and we will pray before each meeting and close each meeting. So, and this was a very important press release. I mean, it had a lot of play. It was very, very important.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see, moving on from this one, we've got the perfect summary of the state of Mormon news podcasting. We have made it to the ex-Mormon subreddit, where, in fact, we've got the moderator of the Mormon and ex-Mormon subreddits coming on as a special guest at the end of the month. Chino Blanco has said, welcome to the Mormon News Roundup, a weekly podcast sponsored by Signature Books. And so welcome to all of our new listeners from Reddit. We are certainly glad to have you here, and we hope that you enjoy yourselves and enjoy the podcast and just enjoy talking about some of the things that are pertinent to the great and spacious beehive. So,
that's right. And I picked up on that post. I saw it because I'm often on the church social media sites, just kind of church watching as I do. And I even made a comment. I said, I have been lucky enough to be a guest host a couple months ago on the Mormon News Roundup. And these guys are awesome. And I encourage everybody to listen. So I say that again.
That's right. So, yeah, thank you very much for that. We've had an interesting year in 2022 where we've got the church announcing more temples than the stakes that it's going to be opening up. So we're starting to get a little top heavy, where we don't have quite as many people on the ground floor, but we've got a ton of big, huge temples being built around the world.
Let's hope nothing topples, right? That's what happens when the ground floor is shrinking and the
that's
top
what
is...
happens, yeah.
It is what happens. Well, and I kind of feel like there's total control over temples. You can control, you have the money to build it, you can announce it. Stakes and growth, there's no control there. You can't help it when people are sort of gravitating away and you're having to consolidate wards and combine stakes. But temples, that alludes to growth. It does allude to it. So it's very showy.
Yeah, certainly growth in that the church has a lot of money and the church has a lot of real estates, and that the church has a lot of temples. As far as the membership to run those temples, well, that's not such a good way to gauge it.
Yeah, that's what I find interesting is when you look at where some of these temples are, just literally miles away from other temples. And you do hear anecdotally that it's hard to staff the existing temples. You just wonder if, when a temple's announced in a stake, if everyone just kind of goes, oh dear, are we going to be able to handle this? What is going to be able to happen? And I've even heard that some temples are going on reduced schedules, abbreviated schedules, and some even appointment only, which I knew was the case for some of the quote destination temples, the very like Rome, but I didn't realize that some of the regular temples, but I understand that it takes a lot to operate a temple, and if membership is shrinking, it's very hard to staff those. I know that they call on elderly people a lot. My parents, for years, decades, helped, in the temple in their area. And I know that people on service missions are often called to help staff temples. So they're trying to draw people in, but I still think it's quite the burden.
It's something that we've seen a lot of in recent times is service missions. That they were kind of reserved for a very select few, usually people with some sort of a handicap, either physical or mental disability, because the mental and physical strain of a full-time mission, it's intense. But back in the time when I served a mission, it was not so. I mean, you if you went on a mission, everybody went on a mission, and you stayed the whole 2 years, and there was no going home. Now we're starting to see kids are going out to the mission field, finding it's really messing with their heads, and so they come home. But rather than come home fully, they change over from a full-time proselyting mission to a service mission. So maybe this is kind of one of the futures, right?
Yeah, no, I think so too. And just anecdotally in my own area and friends of my own children that are that age, many more are, choosing or being called on service missions. And then exactly what you said, coming home and finishing out. And a lot of them do serve in the temples. They also serve in like cannery or DI, things like that. So it's interesting. And I wonder if eventually with more and more people on service missions, they'll expand the kinds of service they can give, because I can think of so many needs, where this workforce of these young people, can get out there and do a lot. So I'm hoping, because you can only do so much at DI.
Exactly.
It seems like there's a lot to do. There's a lot of people that need help that these kids can help. So it is very interesting. One thing about going back to temples that I live in Utah, and I live right next to a temple, actually. I'm looking at it right now out my window. But, it used to kind of be that temples were built in these pristine locations. Someone in the stake or the area would donate some land, and they would sort of be this destination location.
Yeah.
Now it seems like they are plopping down right on the side of the freeway. I mean, it's almost shocking. You're driving by, you're like, oh, I guess the idea is you speed off the off ramp, you run in to do a session, you jump back in your car and you go, but they are right by the side of the freeway. It's very interesting.
Yeah, so your next trip down to Disneyland, you see the temple off on the side of the road. Hey, maybe we'll just swing in and do a session and then continue on.
Ease of access. So now I do love the Washington, D.C. temple being visible from the freeway, because you have all those hilarious Surrender Dorothy memes.
Oh, the Surrender Dorothy is hilarious.
Those are
Yeah. So, something about the state of Utah, it seems like we really like being able to stand at one temple and look across the valley and see another temple. So,
Yeah.
when they announced the Smithfield Temple up in Cache Valley, I was a little surprised that they picked Smithfield, which is basically 2 towns north of Logan, where there's already a huge temple. And they are doing, rather than doing a temple in Preston, Idaho, a Napoleon Dynamite temple.
Napoleon Dynamite temple. That's it.
I believe it was you that came up with that one, Rebecca. It was great.
They would serve quesadillas in the cafeteria.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, they chose Smithfield, and I don't think they put quite as much thought into it as they needed to, because now they've kind of put it on hold because they were going to build the temple right in the approach pattern for the airport, the Logan Airport. So, yes. So
my goodness.
They got to figure that out. Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, and another thing, what's your opinion on the lack of Mormonis on temples? I mean, back in my day, that would have been, there has to be a Moroni, and he has to have his trumpet facing the right direction. That means all's right in the world and all's right with the church, and now, and even on some of the temples that I've noticed here in Utah, there's a spire, and there's almost like it almost from a distance looks like a cross. It's very interesting. There's certainly not a Moroni, and there's almost the illusion of a cross. Have you noticed this? Have you given any thought to this?
I have. It's really bizarre because, Moroni symbolize the angel flying through the heavens having the everlasting gospel, and that's, why Moroni is sitting there blowing a trumpet, depending on what temple he's on. But, the cross, I've seen... Because let's see, it seems like at the top of the spire, there's like a big ball. And then like right around this ball, there's some spikes coming out horizontally. And then one giant spike going straight up to be the very, top where the temple terminates as a building. Looking at it from different angles, it does kind of look a little bit like a cross. And I know that the church has really been trying to align itself with mainstream Christianity.
Right.
But some of that seems like they've been trying to redefine mainstream Christianity as well in order to...
Well, I think in order for them to fit into it, they're going to have to, because they're not going to be able to fit in. But I will say anecdotally, people like my parents' age who are in their 80s, and they look through the church news and we look at the temples together, and they notice, and they are actually upset and wondering, where are the Moronis? Because to them, that is the church. That means everything's right in Zion. And they're very confused.
That was a big deal.
Confused. It is a big deal. I mean, they're the ones, the type that, during the earthquake that was in Salt Lake several years ago when the trumpet fell, they took that as a sign, right?
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
Happening. So, Moroni is a big deal. Moroni means a lot. It was the symbol of our church for quite a long time. And like you say, I feel they're gravitating away from that now. And, it's definitely looking and feeling a little more mainstream as much as they can on the surface. I'll say that on the surface.
Yeah, exactly. The Angel Moroni, he was the logo for decades. And now recently they changed the logo over to the Christus statue.
Exactly.
Hey everybody, it's D-Baze here. Thanks so much for listening to the Mormon News Roundup. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Allow me to explain. Anchor has the tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. So download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Which kind of ties into our next article where the LDS Church is taking over other religions' artwork. And so...
Appropriating, if we could say.
Appropriating to make more appropriate. How about that? So,
wow, that's a headline right there.
There we go. So recently, the LDS Church has taken a famous painting of Mary and the baby Jesus, and she's surrounded in the stable with cherubims and animals and things, and so the church took it. First of all, they kind of washed out a lot of the brilliant color, and so it looks much more subdued than the original. Then they erased all the cherubims and the animals,
Of course, you have to do that. I mean, that does not belong in the stables with the Christ story.
And probably most noticeably, they covered up the cleavage of the Virgin Mary. So,
Yeah, no, this is so disappointing. I was an art history minor. I'm very familiar with this picture. It's a beautiful, extremely well-known story of a new mother, a young mother, and a baby. And it's a beautiful picture. And you say cleavage, it's not cleavage. She's a new nursing mother, and she's going to feed the baby. It's maternal. It's beautiful. And unfortunately, I feel that by doing what they did to the picture, they absolutely sexualized the original picture. This is a mother. This has nothing to do with that. And yet, they deemed it inappropriate because they airbrushed in, washed out the colors, airbrushed in a neckline. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't put baby Jesus in a turtleneck because his swaddling is a little loose. I think it's a little skin show.
Yep, for sure.
And it's just, I don't understand why, and they used it for the Light the World campaign. And I don't know why if they wanted a picture that was more just kind of whitewashed and sanitized, why didn't they just create one of their own? Because to me, this is, it's just, it was not right. And I didn't appreciate it.
And that's the question I have, because obviously they've got talented artists, regardless of whether this was done with Photoshop or some digital artwork, or art software. You can create, if you're going to take somebody with that kind of talent and whitewash this painting, why don't you just have them create exactly what you want originally and not have to bogart somebody else's artwork?
Well, and I think it's because, they, like you said, they want to align themselves with more mainstream Christianity. And that means borrowing the symbols, notably, like you said, the Christus, which is now the logo. I mean, that was in a beautiful church in, I want to say, Sweden, Switzerland, and spotted by President Kimball back in the day, and copy hauled over to the visitor center. I think they want to be a major player in the stage of Christianity, and you can't come up with new artwork for that. You need to use what's tried and true and what's there. It just gives you kind of importance. That's kind of what I think the motivation is behind it.
I think you're absolutely right, Rebecca. Okay, so the church has also released its 2022 year in review. Recently, I believe it was last week, we did our episode of our top 10 year in review for the articles from this year. And interestingly, we have Mormon News Roundup's list only has one article in common with the LDS Church's list. And that article is regarding the choir at Temple Square changing their mission statement. So, the church is certainly promoting itself, giving a big pat on the back for a lot of the donations and a lot of the work that it's been doing and a lot of the buildings that it's been
and the
building.
Traveling. I noticed that it was a lot of traveling. This apostle went here, and this person. It was almost like it reminded me of like a family Christmas newsletter. No real weight to it, but just Billy did this and Cindy did this and we did. It's all very nice and fluffy. There weren't some of the more hard-hitting things that had happened in the year, which though they did happen because you've been covering it all year long.
Yeah, that's right, Rebecca. This is something that does read a lot like a family follow-up end of the year Christmas letter. Like, this is what's going on in everybody's lives. And by the way, Grandpa Nelson is now 98 years old.
I think I would say great Grandpa Nelson.
Grandpa, yeah, exactly. Because he's up there.
And I think it's very funny that another thing they're applauding themselves on is the choir. I don't even know what to call it because I don't even know what the new name of it is.
Yeah.
I mean, they basically took the most lovable, beloved, recognizable symbol of Mormonism, that transcended the whole world, and they changed it to, I literally can't even say what the name is. It's something about the temple that nobody knows what a tabernacle is. Nobody knows what Temple Square is. I think most people think that the Mormon Tabernacle Choir disbanded. I don't think that they know. And yet,
I'll bet you're right.
Wonderful stories, that the church has put out, and it was one of the cases where it certainly ain't broke. You did not need to fix that. That was something that was working very well for
Yeah.
you.
So now we have the. I guess this is like when Prince changed his name to a symbol, and then nobody
That's
could
right.
pronounce it, so
Right.
they kept referring to him as the artist formerly known as Prince.
Formerly known. I wish we
Yeah.
could say the choir formerly
Formerly
known.
known as the
That
Mormon
actually would get more play, I think, 'cause I don't think anybody knows
Yeah.
what to think or what it really is. But
It might catch on. We're going to start it here on the Mormon News Roundup. Okay. All right. Maybe this is tied to the previous article. Maybe it's not. But did you know that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is officially one of the nation's least favorite religions?
I read that. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And this is going to be startling news
Yeah.
to the church publicity department that have been working so hard to rebrand and to align themselves with mainstream Christianity. And yet, look, they're tied pretty much with Scientology and probably most problematic in their eyes, Satanism.
Satanism, devil worshiping. Yep, this is going to be a real blow to the shins of the church office building.
And I'm actually offended for Satanists because I have explored what they're about, and they're not what you think at all. They're a very secular organization that does amazing charitable works. Like that is their focus. They really are a charitable organization, and they do not worship Satan. And so I can understand why people would vote, "Oh, that's not favorable." They just don't understand. But I think this is very sad.
When most people think of Satanism, I think the knee-jerk response is to think of, baby eating and blood sacrifices and stuff. And that's not it at all. It really is, for the vast majority of the Satanic Temple, is about the Church of Satan is about secular charitable work. So.
It is. And think about where atheists came in, well above. That's also got to be extremely disturbing because atheists also have a very bad rap.
They do. So, really this is one where the LDS Church is going to be very disappointed to find themselves where they're at. But there is some sort of saying about when you try to please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody. So.
And that's it. I think that's what happens. And I also think maybe they landed so far down on the list that people at this point don't even really know who they are or what they are. And, maybe basing their opinions on a few, articles or things that have come out, that are a little more negative and publicity that's, been in the last year or so. I don't know. I'm sure that the church's advertising and publicity and marketing department, I'm sure they're burning the midnight oil. I predict that we might see some kind of new campaigns coming out in the new year. Something more positive spin on things. So we'll see what they come up with.
Well, because it seems like anytime that the LDS celebrities make the news, usually it's because they're coming out as LGBTQ and the church is against them.
Yep, so. That's exactly right. Yep, it's hard to spin that, unfortunately. So they're going to have to come up with something big and positive.
Yep. So let's see. Big and positive. I don't know how this fits into big and positive. Maybe big news. NewNameNoah. He has been a very controversial YouTuber. His big controversies have mostly centered around the fact that he's managed to sneak in hidden cameras to LDS temples and film the endowment ceremony and put it up on YouTube. And he has now released the new temple ceremony video, which is a film strip or a slide strip, a slideshow. Went to the 2022 South Korean temple endowment session, and that's the what he put up on YouTube. And so now, if you've been curious about what developments there have been, it's up there, and you can watch it now. So, this is a really controversial story because I know that there's a lot of people within the LDS Church that have some very tender and sincere feelings about this, and they take it very personally, very offended that something like this would happen. But I don't. It's hard to know what to say about this because you don't want to trample over somebody else's beliefs, but at the same time, just because something is kept secret doesn't mean that it's sacred. But the LDS Church can say, "Well, these things are sacred to us. That's why we keep it a secret." I just don't know that serves the church's best interest. What are your thoughts, Rebecca?
Yeah, no, I don't think that it does. And if you look at the number of people that have watched the different videos that he's put up, I guarantee that some of them are faithful members who just want to know what the heck happens in the temple before they go in there.
Yeah.
And it's a question of consent.
Yeah,
Like, you
informed
really have
consent,
no
right.
idea. And I know they've tried to be more transparent, but back again, I'll say in my day, I mean, I was terrified to go because it was really under wraps. There was nothing. I knew nothing, and it was terrifying to me. And I feel like the church, they could just go right at this. They could put out their own video in a temple class and just say, look, this is what happens. Here it is. Just go right at it. You control the message. You know, because what NewNameNoah is showing, he hasn't doctored it. He hasn't changed it. It is the temple ceremony. It is what is happening. And there's a lot of different reasons that people would want to Google this, or they'd be curious about it. And I just feel like in 2023, to keep something like that so secret when, you know, it's a big part of Mormonism, it's a big part of everybody's life, just show everybody what's going on and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, because really the question arises, which looks worse, to actually do the temple ceremony or to try to cover it up?
It's like a war game. It's not actually the action, it's the cover-up. I think, you know, take a page out of Richard Nixon's book, LDS Church, and let's just make these things more transparent. Let's allow people to give consent to what they're going to, you know, the covenants they're going to take on and the things that they're going to learn and see and do in the temple. And I think everyone will be happier and have less trauma.
Yep, exactly. So that's also tied to our Mormon News Roundup question of the week. This is once again available only on Anchor. What do you think about NewNameNoah secretly recording temple ordinances and posting them to the public? So head over to Anchor and let us know what your thoughts are. Okay, we're down to our last couple of articles here. Rebecca, why don't you head up this next one? You're the one that submitted it, and I really like this one.
Oh, is it I'm looking at my
European Court of Human Rights?
Yeah, this one like popped into my newsfeed this morning. I was literally in bed and going, "Wait, there's more," because we already knew we had such a full day with this. So this is very interesting. So in Europe, apparently, and this article specifically dealt with Bulgaria. In the past, they consider the Mormon religion, the Jehovah's Witness religion, and I think some branches of the evangelical churches, they consider them minority religions, and they considered them to be cults that are dangerous to their citizens. So they have, you know, referred to these religions in their government papers as cults. They have even gone as far, I think about 10 or 12 years ago, of sending letters through the school districts warning people about these minority religions and calling them cults, and saying that they might cause psychological harm if you participate. Well, of course, you know, this doesn't bode very well for missionary work there, right? If your child is bringing home a letter that says, don't let these guys in. So various lawyers from LDS Church, Jehovah's Witness, they have appealed this, and the European Court of Human Rights has now come out and said, you can no longer do this. You can't refer to these minority religions as cults, and you certainly can't, you know, warn people about them or tell them that they're going to cause psychological damage. Of course, I have my own opinion on that, as a lot of people do. But one of the funnier things, I think, is just that they keep calling it a minority religion, you know, because those people don't feel that way about Mormonism, right?
Oh, exactly.
It's a major religion. So, but I thought that was very interesting that it literally reached the top levels of government, you know, that we have to, we can't say this, we can't warn our people. So very interesting.
There's something really ironic about this, where you've got like the people being referred to as a cult or a minority religion saying, well, you know, all of my friends are the same religion as me because our religion teaches us not to associate with people who are not of our same faith and don't have the same values and standards as us. But we're not a minority religion. We're not a cult. You know, well, you're walking like a duck and you're quacking like a duck. So
you brought ducks into it. So well, that's what happens to missionaries sometimes, especially missionaries who grew up maybe in a Mormon bubble, wherever that may be, and they get out there and they realize, oh my goodness,
we're the minority.
You know, and that can have one or two effects. I think in the past, There's that effect where you feel the world is dangerous. It's more dangerous. Everybody's different. The only place I'm safe is, with my group. That's actually a psychological tactic to keep people, entrenched in the group that they're a part of. But anymore, I think I do see a lot of missionaries that get out there and they go, wow, their mind is expanded. They're exposed to different ideas, different religions, different people, and they expand and they see these different perspectives. So maybe more eyes wide open, whether they stay or what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting phenomenon, I think.
Absolutely. So, yeah, this is, I like I said, I really enjoyed this article. I thought it was very much worth bringing in. And, whereas this last article talks about some of the problems that arise, we have an LDS law professor in our final article who has brought a suggestion on a solution for how to fix the church, which we've seen by very much experience over the past several years since the church started, that anybody that tries to fix the problems of the church from within and going through the proper channels can often find themselves outside the church and, excommunicated, right?
Cast out, if you will.
Yeah. So his suggestion is to have the LDS Church employ an ombudsman. So what is an ombudsman? Sorry, I can't say that one, Rebecca. Ombudsman. Okay.
Yeah, just an impartial person who could, see all sides. And I'm not sure, maybe all of your listeners don't understand the process now. If you were in, a ward, a church group, and something was happening, maybe the bishop was doing something, or you wanted to just ask a question, you might think you could write a letter to a higher up church authority. Well, if you do that, that letter is cycled back to your local authorities and they deal with you.
That's
so
right.
if your letter is to say, Dear President Nelson, my bishop is acting this way toward my teenager or something, or my bishop has done this and I'm concerned and I'd like to talk about this or alert somebody, that letter will never be opened by anyone else. That letter will go right back to the
bishop.
Who will tell the bishop about it?
Yep.
So it's very cyclical, and really, the people that are about the only desperate way that you can have your voice be heard. It's almost like Horton Hears a Who. If you're familiar with that Dr. Seuss book,
Yeah.
I'm here. You have people that actually stand up, attend general conference. And they will, they'll give a dissenting voice or they'll yell something, protect children. I think I heard yelled once. And of course, they're escorted out straight to their state president, right? So this idea that there would be sort of a clearinghouse where you could write a letter and say, I'm concerned about this in my ward. I'm concerned about how this is being handled. I think it would be so eye-opening. And if you think about it, the upper leadership, they never hear these things. They don't know. I believe they almost have rose-colored glasses on. They really have no idea what's happening in the trenches that absolutely affects people's lives, that can be life and death. In some situations, or maybe not even life and death. I think of a situation where my son was going to be baptized and he had a cousin, his very same age, in one stake over. And so we have family members coming to this baptism. We have elderly family members. And at this point, we have two baptisms, one in the morning in one stake, one in the evening or afternoon in the other stake. And that's a lot for elderly family, to do. So we thought, okay, let's ask either of our stake presidents if either of these little boys can go be baptized in the other stake, if that makes sense, right?
Well, sure, because they're both being baptized into the same church, right?
Let's share the baptism so that these elderly relatives can go to one and we don't have to make an entire day of it. Well, you would think that would be easy, but it was not. Neither of our bishops or stake presidents, even though we live 3 miles apart, neither of them would let us do that. They would not let my son be baptized in my sister-in-law's stake, and they would not let her son be baptized in my stake. And on paper, I guess that's how it is, but it greatly impacted that day. It caused a lot of having to go, okay, we'll go here first, and then we'll go to lunch over here, and grandma can rest. Can she rest at your house? I mean, it was a lot that we had to plan and schedule, and wouldn't it be great if prior to that, there could have been an ombudsman? I could have written a letter, said, you know what, here's the situation. it's not that big a deal, I don't think. I
Yeah.
wonder if some impartial person could almost see reason in this situation.
But,
Of course,
yeah.
that's very minor, I mean, it was a big deal to us, but it's minor. But there are
Well,
major things that happen that you would like an impartial person to, at least so that you feel heard, I think.
So you can feel represented, right?
Yes, feel represented.
Without risking your membership, right? Because that's kind of the problem.
Exactly.
The way that the general handbook defines it, and the way that it's addressed that way is like, well, we don't want people trying to avoid their bishop or somebody that they don't like in their home ward or home stake. So,
right.
It's make sure that people are doing things within their own stake. Well, that's fine, but that's not what the situation is here. The situation is you've got a family get together with two, kids getting baptized. And it's not that you have an issue with the stake president before. You might have an issue with the stake president
We were
after.
just stunned. We were very naive.
Exactly.
This makes perfect sense, And somebody pointed out in the article about the ombudsman that lots of times if you have an in, you have a relative or you have someone that knows a higher up, you can get some special treatment.
Yeah, you can.
That's the only way to do it. They brought up I think it was an example of no heat in the building or not enough heat. And they didn't have anybody to contact, but then someone had an in. Someone knew someone.
Yeah, someone knew an apostle some general
that's
authority.
Absolutely ridiculous because then it's just favoritism. It happens to be who you know and things happen.
And that's exactly what the status quo is right now.
It is. And I think this is brilliant. I'm worried for this law professor that he may get a letter circled back to his stake president because it is such a great idea for everybody. I would think that any leader of an organization would want to know what's happening in the lower levels. I think you would want to know. I mean, I guess I can think of reasons why they don't want to know. But
the only reasons that really strike me that they wouldn't want to know is arrogance or just having that attitude that, well, I'm the leader and so you follow me, I don't follow you. But the church has been making some pretty good progress over the last few years with admitting that we are a growing church. We're learning and growing.
And we're not perfect. They say that a lot.
Exactly. So. We have ongoing revelation, right? So
But this office, I mean, can you imagine? It would really give you a snapshot of what is actually really happening. Because right now we don't know how many people are writing letters. I mean, Bill Reel the other day posted that he'd written a letter and it had cycled back to his, so we have anecdotal, individuals, but we don't know on a big scale how many people really are hurting, how many people need to be heard. And this office would show that. I mean, if there were bags and bags of letters that came in every day. So, and I mean, there has to be checks and balances. I mean, I know it's a theocracy.
I think you would have a huge influx of letters at the beginning.
At first, I think so.
Yeah, at first. But as things get fixed, then all of a sudden you start to see other things happen. You start to see people not leave the church. You start to see people come back to the church. And you start to see a lot more happiness and contentment. And you start to see that, wait a second, we're actually bringing in more tithing money than we did before. We're bringing in more donations, and things are really progressing because we've paid attention to what people want as well.
And you don't feel like you're kicking against a brick wall. I mean, so I had a situation in college, which was rare, but these things do happen, where our bishop was just doing some strange things. It was in a student ward. He was calling people in and talking about things that never happened. And, sort of threatening to perhaps hold discipline, or, nobody could quite understand what was happening. We later learned that the poor man had a brain tumor. He had a medical situation. Yeah. But we and young college students, we didn't know what to do. We couldn't go to our bishop. He was the one that was saying, and he was impacting people's lives. He was being mistaken about what was happening. He was confusing people and their situations for other people, and making decisions based on that, So eventually, several of us went to the stake president, and we just said, this is strange. Here are some strange situations. And luckily, again, stake president roulette, which is a very unfortunate word, and unfortunate how that works. He was able to go, oh my goodness, okay, this group of kids that come in, we will look at it and see what's happening. But that was no fault of anybody. This poor man, bishop, had a medical situation, but because of his role of authority, it was absolutely impacting us. And luckily we had an understanding presiding stake president who was able to, intervene and stop some of these courts that this bishop was trying to have. I'm not kidding. He was really confused. It was really unfortunate.
Oh, absolutely.
But again, roulette. Are we really just at the mercy of roulette?
Yeah.
These are people's lives that we're talking about, and an ombudsman, I can't say the word either.
That's all right.
A mediator situation, this would be a way that you could have an impartial person look at the situation and weigh in. So I wish this would happen. I wish it would. I think it would make a huge difference.
It would be a great solution. I'm sure we'd fix a lot of problems. And like I said, it could only do good for the church, because it seems like the church is inclined to lean that direction by sending out surveys and polls and whatnot, just to keep its finger on the pulse of where the membership are at and what's going on. But this is a way that you could have an ongoing thing that would help make things a lot smoother going forward.
I think so too. No, it would make a huge difference, and it would be like an olive branch to people, because people like to say, "Oh, you've left the church because you're offended." Well, it's not as simple as that. There are situations where it just becomes impossible to stay in certain circumstances.
Could you imagine people that bishop had disfellowshipped or excommunicated just because of a tumor?
Very confused. No, I know. I mean, he told he told one girl that a boy she was dating had a child. That and so of course they broke up. You know what I mean?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
That was not the case. It was another person who did have a child. So we're talking about people's lives, and it was an innocent situation. It was a brain tumor, but this information, the things that he was doing, it was impacting people, and no one knew what to do. So, and of course that's rare. I know that was maybe too salacious or whatever, but it did happen. It did happen to me and my friends in college, and so it's real.
Okay. Well, I think that covers the news for this week. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming on and for joining us. We look forward to seeing you much more frequently in the future going forward. This has been a real treat.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love this, and it was really fun to interact with you and go through all of these. And I'm sure we can't even imagine the kind of stories that are going to come out going forward. There's always something.
There always is. So, yeah. All right. To our listeners, please find us on Twitter. We also have a website out there, our MormonNewsRoundup.org. And you can also email us, MormonNewsRoundup.com. Excuse me, or .org. And we've got some really big guests coming forward in the coming month. Next week, we've got Ada from Descent Daughters is going to be co-hosting with us. And then Colby Reddish from, he's a famed attorney. He's coming on January 15th. I'll be gone that week, so then D-Vase can razz me for not being here too. And then we've got Evan from the Book of Evan coming on January 22nd. And Chino Blanco, the OG moderator of Our Mormon and Our Ex-Mormon Reddits, is coming to end up the month on January 29th. Like to thanks again to Rebecca Biblioteca for coming on, and a shout out to Weird Alma for this episode's music. And thanks so much to our listeners for ruminating with us on the Great and Spacious Beehive. And remember, no unhallowed hand can stop this podcast from progressing.
When it comes to nicknames of the church, such as LDS Church, the Mormon Church, to remove the Lord's name from the Lord's church is a major victory for Satan.
Satan.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a being with no moral constraints. My number one goal is to hurt the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.